Today, we're going to talk about selling term life insurance, in a lot of cases, mortgage protection, versus whole life insurance, mainly final expense sales. And the four main things that we are going to touch on are, number one, the people that we sell term to versus final expense, which is easier to generate leads for. Think about it. Term life insurance, you're selling to a younger, more professional crowd. Who's easier to close? Who's mostly going to likely to buy from you? The term life, the mortgage protection crowd, or the final expense, the senior crowd. And we're also going to talk about a really, really important subject, the persistence for both of these markets, which is completely different for the two. Before we get started, please give the video a thumbs up. We do suggest subscribing if you're new to the channel. We're putting out new insurance sales content and final expense sales training videos just like this all the time. So let's jump right into it and talk about, number one, the folks that we sell term to versus final expense. So really, guys, the bottom line is, and by the way, I used to sell mortgage protection. Basically, I didn't specialize in term. I used UL, but that's what we generally do. When it comes to mortgage protection, we usually sell term life and or universal life. So the one thing about that market that stuck out is I was meeting with a lot of professionals. So we're talking people that had the insurance through their job a lot of times. And when we talk professionals, these are educated people that really think they know better than you. That's kind of the attitude they give. So with this younger professional market, really, the bottom line is they're a lot harder to sell to than the seniors. Think about it. When it comes to whole life insurance, final expense, a lot of these folks are basically, at the end, they've delayed getting the insurance and now they're kind of desperate. So to me, it's really a much easier sale. And guys, stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to show you how to get a copy of both the last will and testament and the memorial planning guide that you can share with any of these markets. With basically anybody that you would sell a life insurance product to could use both of these. So number two, which is easier to generate leads for? Which market? The term life market or the final expense market? So if you don't know better, it's night and day. The final expense market, they're easy to generate leads for. First off, they're usually really cheap to generate also. You can get them to where they're exclusive and you never have to work an age lead. And I say that because when you're working that term life market, and let me say, especially if you're looking at like mortgage protection sales, you're probably mainly going to be working age leads, which when I say age leads, that's a nice way of putting basically leads that have been worked over and over and over, resold over and over and over. It just makes sense, for me, like the final expense clients are just so much easier. Now, I'm not saying that you should absolutely, because based on my experience, I started in the term market industry and selling ULs, and I went to final expense. Part of the reason I did that was because of the cost of the leads. And the first thing was the easier people are easy to sell to. Once I realized that, I was like, ooh, that's great. And the cost of the leads. So, which leads us to number three, who's easier to close? So I already touched on that. Really the seniors, they get desperate. A lot of them, it's at the end of the road. So yeah, the seniors are a lot easier to sell than your professional. Let's put it, than your doctor who already thinks he's a god and knows everything and probably has some insurance through work. So really, to me, the younger folks they're gonna want the term. They're gonna want those big face amounts, as to where the seniors that we market to are lucky they can get anything. So to me, it's just so much easier to close. And keep in mind, with a lot of these folks, even with the seniors, if they've already got a policy, a lot of times they do just want more, or they want a better deal. A lot of them will end up with these real expensive whole life policies, and they won't realize that they're paying through like this real expensive company. And then one of our agents will come in and be like, no, Mrs. Client, I can give you double the insurance for really right around the same price that you're already paying. So to me, that's just one of the reasons it's so much easier to sell final expense versus, the term product, that younger market. Number four, persistence. Okay, look, this is night and day. So the persistence for final expense, if you're doing it right, if you're nurturing your client, if you're doing all the things that you're supposed to do to keep your clients on the books, that final expense persistence is around 80%. As to where with the term life market, the younger ones, it can be like over 95%. I mean, back when I was a Hartford agent, I think my first year persistence was like, it was crazy. It was like 99 point something percent. It was ridiculous. So to me, you've got the pros and the cons of both markets. And that's what you have to look at when you decide, what am I going to do? Which market do I really want to target? At the end of the day, the reasons I believe in working the final expense market versus the term market, number one, first of all, half the term market ends up being final expense sales. So you want to pay top dollar for a lead? Great. You do that you're going to end up where half of them end up being final expense. Okay, that's fine. But to me, right off the bat, that makes sense. The clients are easier, as I mentioned. The leads are easier and cheaper to generate. I think, that's something you really have to look at. It's going to all bring the value to what you're doing. You've got to look at that return on investment. Super huge. Renewals. Final expense, whole life insurance, it's going to pay a renewal. As to where term life rarely pays a renewal. And guys, I'm not saying it's a major renewal. Generally, renewals, I hate to say it, for that first, from year 2 through 10 is where the whole life pays. They usually don't pay more than 10 years, but the renewals are anywhere from like 2 to 3% to maybe as much as 7% on the higher side. But it is a renewal. That's the way I look up. So basically, at the end of the day, the one thing that I do give up to sell final expense, the reason I love the final expense, all those reasons, but I'm giving up the one thing. What is the one thing? Well, it's persistence. So that's your pros and cons. You're really, at the end of the day, everything seems more sensible to go with final expense sales until you look at the persistence. But if you're doing it right, it's really not that big of a difference. It's really like 15 to 20% difference. So yeah, you're going to sell a lot more final expense clients. Yeah, you're going to have a lot more that are going to fall off the books. But when you can get, at the end of the day, leads for like under $10 of good high intent leads through like a Facebook funnel platform like the one that we use for our agents, compared to $60 for a new mortgage protection lead or $10 or $15 for a lead that's been worked over and over and over, to me, it just makes sense to do the final expense market. Now, the cool thing about the final expense market too, the way we generate our leads, we can actually open that door to target 20-year-olds and older. So we don't have to just target the 50 through 85 market. We can actually go down to 20 years old. So now you're getting some clients that do fit into a term life policy. Hopefully you guys got something out of this video. If you'd like a copy of the Last Will and Testament and the Memorial Planning Guide that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, just email me at doug@ufesonline.com. If you'd like more information on working with us and our remote sales platform where we specialize in whole life insurance, just shoot me an email at that same address. As always, when you put the needs of your clients first, everything else will usually fall right into place. Now get out there or get on that headset, and whatever you do, just make sure that you do something good for someone else today. Happy hunting.